Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sunday Sit Down. I'm Reverend Phil Dieke. I'm so glad that you have joined me this morning to be here for this conversation. We are starting a new series. We just finished up last week with the Encountering the Risen Christ, and we're moving flawlessly into this new series on the Holy Spirit, third person. And so I'm so excited, and it's a huge privilege. A dear friend of mine, a colleague and friend, and really, I just say that because I want to be dear friends and colleagues. We are friends and colleagues, Jack.
We certainly are, Phil.
We
certainly are.
I don't hold the same esteem that you do, and I'm just really grateful that you're here with me.
Hold esteem?
You have like all these credentials. So Jack.
I'm
Levison,
64. How old are you, Phil?
36.
Yeah, I mean like double your age, so okay. I should have a few more credentials.
If I have the same credentials whenever I'm 64, I will be very proud of myself. Because, and I don't say this to blow your horn or to fill your head. You've written countless books. You are a professor at Perkins. You teach Hebrew Scriptures, Old Testament.
Yeah, come on. What chair am I in?
I actually don't know what chair.
It's called the power chair. I'm in the power. It's actually W.J.A. Power, Bill Power, who was a professor there. A bunch of wealthy Episcopalians.
Endowed a chair at Perkins?
They endowed a chair after this beloved guy. So I am in the power chair.
I love that. That's a great chair to be in.
It's a great chair to be in.
Okay, and here's one of the reasons I love you so much. One, because you have really good banter. That's one of the first reasons I love you so much.
Thank you.
And I had to use the word banter because I would use something else if we weren't on camera, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Also because you teach the Old Testament and Hebrew Scriptures, but your specialty and what you've written so many books on is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, that's true.
And when I first met you, I thought I would have never put those together. And the more I've gotten to know you and the more I've read of you, more books I've read of yours, the more I've thought, oh my gosh, I've missed so much of this.
Yeah.
Growing up, right? Like I never made these connections.
No.
I never, for the longest time I thought, well, the Holy Spirit's only in the New Testament, right?
Yeah. Came at Pentecost.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we just read in our last series we looked at the last two chapters of John, which you have kind of the Pentecost moment in John 20. Yeah. But as if you didn't know that, right?
I do know that. Of course, scholars disagree on that point.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
Is that the Johannine Pentecost?
Yeah, totally. So, first of all, congratulations on the Boundless God.
Thank you.
Christianity Today, we gave you the award in Biblical Studies, right?
Yeah, the Award of Merit in Biblical Studies for 2021.
Which is just incredible.
One of the books to read.
It is one of the books. So
no, I don't know.
We're not going to read that one right now. At least maybe we will. Maybe we'll end up doing another book study in this. And I'll tell this to everybody. We just started a devotional on your book, 40 Days with the Holy Spirit, right? Which is a phenomenal devotional. It's not too late to get started on it.
No, before Pentecost. You can still do it.
Yeah, we're gonna read it through the series that we're doing on this series on the Holy Spirit, but it's not too late to get started. They're short, they're easy to read, right? Daily things that you can do, and they're great invitations. And we have a Facebook group where we're going to converse about what's happening in that.
Oh, that's so cool! I always churches everywhere have used it, and I always say, make a Facebook page, make a Facebook page.
Yep.
So I'm so glad. I may. If I can figure out the technology, I may actually see if I can.
I'll send you an invite. Yeah, I'll send you an invite. You can join in.
I don't like Facebook, but.
Well, there's a lot of things I really despise about Facebook as well. But you know what it does? It still keeps us connected whenever we have.
Yeah, and I love the ads now for like plants, make your plants grow. You can dance together. They have great ads on when we're watching the Colbert Show. Am I allowed to say that?
You can say that, totally, absolutely. He's a good Catholic, it's fine.
Oh my gosh, he's a great Catholic.
He is a great Catholic. But this is what the reviewer said about your book, A Boundless God, which this is a phenomenal segue into what we're going to talk about. Who knew that a word study could read like an adventure story? Welcome to the world of the Holy Spirit in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant statement, first of all. But talk to me about the Holy Spirit in the Old Testament. Like, where would you begin if you're starting to introduce people to the Holy Spirit in the Old Testament?
I begin with the 17th word in Genesis, which is ruach Elohim, or spirit, breath, wind of God. And I would start there, and I would say, look what the ruach does. This ruach broods over the abyss, this muddy, lumpy abyss, waiting to bring order out of the chaos. I mean, who doesn't need order out of chaos? So if I were going to start, I'd start really with the 17th word. I think in Hebrew it's the 17th word. Yeah. Because ruach occurs You ready for this?
Yeah.
378 times in the Old Testament. And if you count the Aramaic sections of Daniel, 389 times. So almost 400 times this word that gets translated spirit, breath, or wind occurs in the Old Testament. Compare that with pneuma, from which we get a pneumatic drill, or pneumonia, or pneumatology, study of the spirit in the New Testament.
In the Greek,
I think that occurs 379 times.
How many?
379, so almost exactly the same amount of times, but we pay all our attention to the New Testament, 379, rather than the Old Testament, 389.
Yeah, that's fascinating. This is probably a little bit of a random question. Well, I'm reading A.J. Levine's book, her new one on...
Levine, Amy Jill.
Levine, yes, thank you.
Never mind.
No, go ahead.
No, I can't say.
Oh, okay, well... Ooh, I'm
can't say.
excited.
She's a good friend.
Oh, I love that.
No, it wasn't about her. It was about something else. It wasn't.
You're working
I love
on that you can't talk about yet?
I can't talk about it
That's
yet.
what I figured.
But I love Amy Jill Levine. She is just, she was a... Okay, so let me tell you a story about Amy Jill Levine. My first year of graduate school at Duke, I come down here, this nice little, 24-year-old graduate school, and Amy Jill Levine comes in with a T-shirt that says Smith College, where she went. Smith College, 150 years of women on top. And, that's how I first met Amy Jill Levine, and I have been in love with her since. She knitted sweaters for Priscilla and me for our wedding. So she's great.
She is great.
She's great.
That sounds very much like
AJ.
her. Yeah, she's fantastic. And I love...
Sorry, I interrupted you, but I love Amy Jill.
But in her book, she talks about the difference between the capital S, lowercase s. Spirit.
Oh, she does.
She does, yeah.
Good for her.
Will you include us in this, right? Because in the Hebrew, it's a translator's opinion, right? Or how they're going to interpret or translate that to decide whether or not it's capitalized. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been beaten up over this.
Really?
Because I choose, and I switch. I either capitalize every reference, or I don't capitalize any reference. Did I say that right?
I think so.
In some books, I'll use just all small s, even for the Spirit of God, because in the Hebrew, ruach is this sort of broad-shouldered word that gets translated 4 different ways, as spirit with a capital S, spirit with a small s, breath, and wind. So it actually gets translated in all these different ways. And in English, you have to choose. As a translator, you have to decide, well, which is this? Breath, wind, spirit with a capital S, spirit without a capital S. And so they have to make the decision. But in Hebrew, you don't. Ruach is ruach, is ruach, is ruach. And so you don't have to make any of those decisions. So let me give you an example. Great story in Numbers 11, which, who
everyone reads Numbers 11 daily. Yeah.
This is where every pastor, Phil, every pastor should do a deep dive study of this text, because Moses is exhausted. And you can remember already back at Sinai, Moses was exhausted.
I'm tracking.
Moses was utterly exhausted. His father-in-law, Jethro, says, "Come on, Moses, get some help. Designate." What is that? Delegate, Moses, delegate. So Moses delegates, and they have this great grand experience. And then a few chapters later, he's back to being a control freak. He hasn't delegated. And so God says, okay, go get 70 elders, right? And bring them out, and I will take from the spirit that is on you, and I will place it on them, and then they prophesy. And in fact, 2 of them prophesy who didn't go out with the 70 elders, and Joshua gets all up in arms and, Moses, look, they're prophesying. Tell them to shut up. And Moses says, would that all Israel would prophesy. But that's not the story I want to focus on. That's spirit. Ruach, 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 ruach.
Right.
In the very next line, a wind from the east blows in carrying quail. And it's actually called a wind from the Lord blows in from the east carrying the quail that the people have been complaining they want. That word is ruach. There is no way to distinguish the ruach wind that brings the quail from the ruach spirit that moves from Moses to the 72 elders. Same big, broad-shouldered ruach in the Old Testament. Wow. Really lovely, mystical world we get to enter, where wind and breath and spirit with a small s and spirit with a capital S all blend together, mix like in my Ninja blender when I make a smoothie. The orange, the apple, the banana, and whatever else I throw in.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna move you back into Genesis again, right? You have this. I don't have the good.
Just clear your throat, baby.
I don't have it as well as you
Just
do.
do
Right?
it. You've hocked a loogie, right? Just do that.
So you have this wind, breath, spirit of God that hovers and broods, right? You said
Yeah.
about in Genesis 1.
It's the word used of a mother eagle in Deuteronomy 32, I think. It's a powerful word.
Interesting.
Brooding. Yeah, it's used of the
okay.
mother eagle, so it really does provide really a background to the idea of the dove.
God,
too.
there's so many metaphors there to go with that, right?
Yeah, we won't go there. Go ahead.
So then Genesis 2, you have God forming the human and then breathing, right?
Neshama. Not ruach, actually.
It's a different one.
Most people think it's ruach, but it's not. It's
that's
God
good.
breathing life breath into.
Not ruach.
No, not ruach. But in the book of Job, ruach and neshama, those two Hebrew words are used in parallel. So there's an overlap.
See, this is
But nonetheless.
I never learned Hebrew. Don't judge me.
Okay, can I say something? I am
Please.
so excited. We are opening Hebrew to the Houston-Galveston Extension Program at Perkins, and I looked at the enrollment yesterday, and we have 17 students already signed up, which is unheard of in a Methodist. We're a Methodist seminary. It's a lot of students. I don't think we've had that any in decades. So I'm very excited that students are going to take Hebrew.
Well, I was told in my New Testament class that if I didn't learn Greek, then I didn't love Jesus. And I always thought if I learned one of them, I would rather learn Hebrew. So maybe I don't love Jesus. I don't know. But
You love God. You love God. Phil, we know you do.
One of the, and I know I'm a huge nerd. I already confessed this to you. Like, I would love to learn Hebrew because of that, right? Like, there's just so much nuance. And what
We're doing it next year. It's doing a hybrid program. You can take it.
like this word study, right? Like you just said, like there's
rich.
so much to garner from this. We talked Genesis, Numbers. What are other things in the Hebrew scriptures that really stand out to you that you wish people knew more about in terms of the ruach in this?
Good question, Phil. Okay, so what I love about my study over the years is it's just led me to texts I never would have looked at to understand the Spirit. And one of the key ones is in Exodus chapter 28, verse 3, tucked into this inventory of what the tabernacle, which was the portable tent for God in the wilderness, and what the priest is going to wear in the tabernacle, tucked into this inventory is a statement where it says, and call all the artisans whom I have filled with, and then if you read most Bibles, they'll say skill or talent or anything. It's actually spirit of wisdom. So whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom. And that wonderful text is like a hyperlink, or it's like a keyhole. You can look through that text to the world of the Spirit, because the artisans are chosen not because they receive a spontaneous influx of the Spirit of wisdom, but because they're lifelong. They have cultivated a spirit of wisdom, and now God is going to tap them on the shoulder and say, okay, have at it. So one of the things I think I've learned, and it creates a real problem for Christians, is that the ruach in us is a lifelong presence that we can cultivate through learning and skill. And practice. It's not something that has to knock us over. The Spirit is given at birth, and we cultivate that Spirit. And that's what the artisans in Exodus 28:3 had done. God is now filling them to the brim with spirit of wisdom to make the beautiful garments for the priest, for Aaron in the desert. So that's a very different view from the Spirit comes when I believe, or the Spirit comes later in life or at Pentecost. The Spirit is already in us, and it's up to us to cultivate that presence of God.
I love that. That's so beautiful.
It's a beautiful way to, and it was completely new to me, because I grew up thinking you receive the Spirit of baptism.
Yeah, and it takes that's just a whole different turn.
Different turn. When you read the First Testament, there's a whole different turn.
Yeah. So, okay, you've hit a lot in the Pentateuch. If we're moving beyond these first 5 books of the Bible, where else are we finding the Spirit, capital S or lowercase s, holy or otherwise? The Spirit of God in the Hebrew Scriptures.
I think obviously one of the real keys is the book of Joel. I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will have visions. Your slaves will prophesy, female and male.
Yep.
So Joel, which is actually, if you read the book of Joel, it's a very traditional book. It's highly unoriginal.
Really?
It's like, oh yeah, there's a locust plague. Oh, there, God's going to do something to someone. Oh boy. Yeah. But tucked right in the middle is this bombshell of a vision for a completely topsy-turvy world when the Spirit is poured out. So the book of Joel, I think, is super important.
Yeah, Numbers and Joel are not two of the texts that I find people reading a whole lot of.
No, and they're so powerful. And again, I did a word study of 389 references, and I found some of these and they thought they were so powerful. The other one I think that is really beautiful, and this is very important, especially like for the United Methodist Church, which is looking at a big schism and a split, and a lot of churches are going to end up flat on their face, is in Ezekiel 37. This is after the people have been exiled to Babylon in 587 BCE. And Ezekiel has this incredible vision of the valley of dry bones. Right. Dem bones going to rise again. And the word ruach is used in there, but if you read it in English, it'll be translated three different ways. It'll be translated as spirit with a capital S, breath, and it'll be translated as winds, winds from the four corners of the earth. But in the Hebrew, the word ruach occurs 10 times, as if Ezekiel is trying to make them realize God's ruach, God's spirit, breath, wind, is so powerful that it can take these bleached bones lying in a valley and bring them back to life. But they don't come back to life in one step. They come back to life little by little. The bones come together, and then you have sinews, and then you have flesh, and still there's no life. And it's the idea of coming back to life is a painful process, but a possible process for a community that has died. So that's a really powerful text, Ezekiel 37. Yeah,
you just hit on a big one there, right? That here we are facing, as a denomination,
huge death. The Dementors are coming for us, right? They want to suck the life out of us. And what does Ezekiel say? God is going to pour that life, and it's going to be painful. Yeah. It's not like we all stand in a military tattoo. It's we clank, we clonk, we hit each other. There's spirit, there's sinews, there's flesh, there's still no ruach in them. Then finally the ruach, and finally they come to life. It's going to be a sloppy process of life-giving, but it's going to be life-giving.
Yeah. That's an encouraging word. That's a really hopeful word, beautiful.
Right? I wrote on that in Fresh Air, that other book, the little green book, Fresh Air. And the image I used was of a friend of mine who worked for World Vision for years, when children are starving, right? When children are starving, when they starve enough, they don't feel anything. They don't feel any pain. So what the workers do, the healthcare workers do, they put sugar water on their lips. And little by little, they begin to taste the sugar water, and then they begin to feel pain. And they start to scream bloody hell. And that's when they're coming back to life. So it's not easy, and it's not painless, but we can come back to life if we want to. That's what Ezekiel's saying.
That's a terrible metaphor, like explanation of it, but also really beautiful at the same time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned Fresh Air. We talked a little bit about your book Inspired. That's kind of the expanded, more academic kind of work of Fresh Air. Like, are they kind of parallel books a little bit?
I wrote a big book in 2009 called Filled with the Spirit, a big 500-page or 450-page. Yeah, a big one. Okay. And then Erdman's wanted me to do a smaller one, so I did Inspired.
Okay.
But between Filled and Inspired, I wrote Fresh Air for a much more popular audience. So that has a lot more stories about life and things. So Fresh Air was...
It's a great one for people who just want to pick up a book and
I think it's a great one. And it takes into passages they never would have thought the Holy Spirit is in. They would say, really? Spirit's there?
And then more recently, you had this Boundless God, and then what was the other one?
An unconventional God, which is called The Spirit According to Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's very unconventional, because you begin to study how Jesus talks about the Spirit, experiences the Spirit. You think, oh, even that isn't predictable. You know,
love
there's
it.
really nothing predictable about the Holy Spirit.
Nothing predictable.
Nothing
I love
predictable.
that. Okay, well, we're out of time for this week.
Okay.
Will you come back for next week and we can talk about Jesus' understanding of the Holy Spirit too?
I will. Do you mind if I wear the same shirt?
Please do.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, everybody. We're going to take a break. We'll be back for worship in just a few minutes. I know there's a lot to digest here that we've talked about in the Holy Spirit, so take a big, deep breath. This wind, breath, Spirit. Take a break and we'll be back for worship in just a few minutes. See you soon.